All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I want today's podcast to be called is Revenge Gets Results. And, a lot of times, you hear about, forgiveness and letting everything go. And I'm all about that. I get it 100%. But again, it depends on what the situation is. I've been involved with a lot of different things regarding, I think, wanting revenge on others, especially when I had a close friend of our family and myself murdered, and how I immediately wanted revenge. And it's easy to say, let things go or to forgive, but a lot of times we just can't. I get it. Even though, having the burden of wanting revenge takes such a toll on you emotionally. It's and I think I could speak for most people out there. They have been hurt. They've been, I don't know what's the word I'm really looking for. They've been just destroyed in one way or another, and they want revenge. But that's not what I'm going to get into with this podcast. What I'm going to kind of talk about is something we're using revenge as a strength instead of kind of a weakness, because I think there's a big difference there because, as you know, sometimes just you want revenge, and it could be in a relationship, a friendship that went, nuts or not that well. It could be a lot of different types of things, revenge. But I'm going to tell you what I went through that I carried around with me for a long time, and I don't even think anybody knows this, actually. But it really worked to my advantage, and it wasn't the type of revenge like I was mentioning previously. But what I started to do at a young age is I was a very small kid, and then you're getting in fights and stuff, and I had a bad attitude as a kid, and I loved playing sports, and I think just being in an Italian-type family atmosphere, they're very competitive, they're very verbal, and it's about, alpha male. At least the family that I was surrounded in, and about being tough. And my mother was tough too. All my aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents were tough. They were just tough people. And I just wanted to be tough as well. But I was always so little and so scrawny, and I've talked about that in my podcast before. And then as I got older, I was always still very small. And I remember, I despised losing. I talk about it once in a while that I hate losing more than I like winning. Winning's kind of easy for me a lot of times when it came to doing different sports things. Not saying I always won by any means. I lost a ton too, especially fighting. I used to say every beating I caught made me tougher. Every beating I've given made me that much weaker. And I believe that. And I remember even Rocky mentioned one of those, and it's a huge quote. But I've been saying that my whole life because I remember my schedules, no matter what sport I was playing, because I played so many different types of sports, I would put the W or the L next to the team that we either beat or lost. And I remember putting the L's there. And if I lost, I cried a lot of times. I was insane. And I was even crazy in high school when I'd wrestle, because the majority of the time I won. And then if I ran into somebody that I lost to, I'd have a temper tantrum privately or in the locker room, or I'd want to rip my hair out of my head. I'd punch myself. I just felt like a failure and a loser publicly. And I felt shamed. Especially you go to wrestle. When you wrestle or play tennis, those are individual sports that I played. And then there's a lot of people in the stands and you lose. Oh my God, I just felt like the whole world was coming down. I felt like I failed my parents, I failed my coaches, I failed my school, I failed my team. Especially if you're a captain and things, it would make me crazy. And, a lot of that though, that losing, and I talk about it all the time, or failing, kept driving me to be better and from a physical sense and mental, I think. But I remember when a couple things really turned things around for me as far as taking it up into another gear. And one was when I was younger, in my teens, I might have been like 15 or 16, we went to go sledding, and then we got into a fight with this other crowd from another school. We went to a private Catholic school. We got in a fight with some public school guys. And we got in a jam, And there was one little shorter, tougher kid. He got in a fight with my buddy who was a boxer. And they fought it out. And then like other guys tried to jump in. And then we ended up getting in a fight. And then we separated. And I knew, for the most part, I knew I wasn't the toughest guy there by any means. And I wanted to be. And I wanted the other guy, one of the other guys, let's just call him, I don't know what that, I don't even remember his name because this goes back, 35, 40 years ago. Maybe 40-something years ago. I can't remember his name. He was a Hispanic guy, and I can't remember his name. We'll just call him the Hispanic. Who gives a shit? So that's not to be racist either. Who gives a shit? I think he was Hispanic. Was he Mexican? I can't remember. But he was, he kind of looked like he would have fought any of us, and we all liked fighting, but nobody was really taking him on the way somebody should have. And I felt like kind of a little bitch. Even though it wasn't even my fight at this point with him or anything, I just wanted to beat the shit out of him. I mean, I wanted to give him such a beating. And so from there, that point on, for something triggered in my head where I wanted to get bigger, stronger, faster, and eventually find him and hunt him and destroy him. That was just my mindset. He has no idea probably this ever happened. So I kicked it in gear, lifting weights and getting bigger and stronger and over the years. But I'm going to tell you something. Oh, yeah. Then I ended up getting in another fight with a bunch of college guys. And I got jumped by like 8 guys. And they were punching me and they couldn't knock me down. And they didn't realize that I could take a beating. And they were hitting me, trying to drag. And I was like getting my own punches in. And I didn't care. I was just like a lunatic. And they even stopped fighting me. These college kids from the university, a local university there in Elmhurst. And finally, they stopped. I don't know what made them stop. And I was with my other buddy. They held him down. So like 6 guys were trying to jump me and punch me. And I was fighting them. And I wasn't that big in high school. I was like 140 pounds. Finally, I just I kept fighting my way through it. And a few of the college guys said, dude, leave him alone. It's over. And I got in my car literally. I mean, I was shaking a little bit. Not too bad. And drove home. I dropped my buddy off and went home. I woke up the next day, though. I did have 2 black and blue eyes. But I felt okay. And then a lot of people heard I got jumped and they thought I got killed and they thought I went to the hospital. I recovered really quickly. And then my friends wanted revenge and all the bullshit. So at this point in time, we didn't even know who these college guys were. But between those 2 events, and they happened relatively close to each other, all that anger that I had and just started to spark something in me in revenge. I wanted revenge. And I started to then really lift weights and say even when I wrestled or even when I boxed, not as much when I boxed, but whenever I did anything physical, they were in my mind that I had to excel, especially when it came to lifting weights and wrestling. And I remember my senior year in high school, I was destroying everyone in wrestling because a lot of times I was thinking it was these guys. It could have been the Hispanic kid or the group that jumped me. And if you fast forward then, I remember, especially after I graduated high school, I really wanted to find the Hispanic guy. I didn't know his name too well. I just know I wanted to eventually meet him and just go heads up with him. And I mean, literally I wanted to just destroy him. And a lot of my lifting weights or getting bigger and stronger was because of him. And I started to get really big and really strong, at least for what I thought. So I went from like 140 pounds, I've talked about it, to like 210 to 220. Relatively quickly. And I remember going and then hearing about the Hispanic kid, for instance. The college guys took off. We never really found out those guys or that group of guys. We just heard they went to a certain university because it was near that area. But that's back then. How are you going to find that out? I went to a high school not super far away, but we just didn't know. But the Hispanic guy, I really still, even though I was kind of like, let that go, let's let it go, I couldn't let it go. And I think on a couple occasions, I said I'd come to town, then I was out to find him. And no one, this is back in the 80s again, or late 80s, maybe right at 1990. I wanted to find him. I just wanted to meet him and go one-on-one with him. Besides all my other craziness that I was getting in a lot of fights and doing a lot of crazy shit in and out of Chicago and Florida and other places as well. So I just thought I was ready for him. And I'm still thinking like I'm 130 pounds because this Hispanic kid was not that big. He was just as tall as I was. to make a long story short, I heard once we were at a bar or something, and they said he was there, and I said, I'm going to kill this. Finally, where the fuck is this guy? And I think he got word that I wanted to go get him, and there were bouncers there, and they surrounded me, and I looked across the room because they knew they were friends of mine at this one bar, and they said, hey, he's here, I think he's here, that one dude you talked about. And I looked across the bar, and then the bouncers came, and they were like, Rich, is everything cool here? Because I guess I opened my mouth to somebody. And I looked across the bar, and the Hispanic guy was there, and he looked like he was maybe 5'4", 5'5", and I'm not dissing on him. He must have been maybe 160 pounds. Now, I'm about 220 pounds, and I don't care about the weight size. But I could just, he looked at me, he had no idea who I was. I knew who kind of he was, but it was on a dark hill. But I could tell he had no, I could just tell looking at him and that I was nuts. And I think they eventually told him, and then he left. Maybe he would have fought me. I don't know. But I looked at myself and said, oh my God, you'll kind of look like an idiot because you're probably, 60 pounds, maybe more. You're just so much bigger now than he is. And he may be a better fighter. I don't even know. I doubt it. But even if I went that route and fought a kid that I got in a fight with, so many years ago, and I'm carrying that with me, which that can happen. I was almost kind of embarrassed for myself to say, I don't even want to, I can't, this is ridiculous. After it all was said and done, I'm like, what is wrong with me? But the one thing I will say is, by me wanting that revenge and having that desire for revenge made me into the person I was. And, if sometimes we just need something to motivate us, it could be good, bad, indifferent, or whatever it is. And I'm relating this to a physical type thing, more egotistical, like physical fighting. But if you sometimes have something and you want, and again, this isn't the type of revenge where you want to hurt your ex-girlfriend or your wife or somebody in the workplace or whatever the case may be, or prove something maybe to some, it could be whatever. It's more like revenge for prosperity, I guess you could say, or using something just to get momentum going, to keep pushing you forward. It could be you may, a lot of us, I can't say me as much, but a lot of people do get bullied. And the one thing I would say is, I had been bullied before when I was smaller, but I always kind of fought my way out of it and got respect that way. And I know a lot of people can't fight their way out of it, or they just don't have that disposition, or they just don't want to catch the beating going through. A lot of times you got to go heads up with your bully or a group of guys that are bullies. And it's not always easy. You're going to sometimes get hurt. Things happen. You may get in trouble with your parents, the school, whatever the case may be. But, sometimes if you were getting bullied in your past or people were hurting you, you might want to say, you know what, that is not going to be allowed anymore. And use that as fuel to move forward. That doesn't mean you hold on to that for the rest of your life and let that beat you down. I almost flip it around and say, you know what, those days are over, they're gone. But I'm going to never allow anybody to bully me again. And again, that could be in the workplace. That doesn't mean I'm talking about physical, fighting somebody. Just having something where it drives you forward. And I think a lot of us, in a certain world, we have all these goals, right? We're like, oh yeah, I want to do this. And then I have a goal to do this. And then you get these crazy goals, like, I want to be a billionaire. Wonderful. And I want my own yacht, maybe. I don't know what your goals are. Or, hey, I want to be a celebrity. Or, hey, I want this or that, right? And then you're trying to figure out all these strategic, if I do this and I do that, I do this. But sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes I believe you need that fuel and that almost anger. In not accepting that you won't accept not becoming that. More of an attitude than, I hope I can become that. Or if I do everything this way and think positive and all this, that will really work for me. Which a lot of times it will. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But, hold on one moment. I am going to tell you that being mad a lot of times, and I'm not saying to always be mad, being mad or wanting to kick ass it gets shit done, like really done. What motivated me really to make films a lot of times was because most people told me I was an idiot, that I could never make movies. Because one, I didn't live in Hollywood. The other one was I never made a movie before. I didn't know how to write screenplays. I knew nothing about actors, never directed a film, never knew about anything producing, didn't know how to get distribution. All those things were true. I didn't have enough money. Every time I talk, I'm stupid, I'm too old, you don't know what you're doing. All these different types. See, I use that as fuel to get it done. Now, don't get me wrong. I also, on a positive note, knew what I wanted to get done. It's not. I didn't just do it to throw that in everyone's face. That's ridiculous. But I did use that as fuel, because a lot of times you do want to prove to people, I think, that you can do it, man. You really can do what you're setting out to do. But you need that fire inside of you to really get it going. And I don't think a lot of people get that now more than ever. And I don't mean to say people are softer now than ever. I do think, though, a lot of people can look to be doing a lot more, especially from a social media presence, be doing a lot more than they're actually getting done, if that makes sense. So even when I started making my films in the late 90s and early 2000s, you were making a movie like you either got in the film festivals and you got distribution, or you were kind of a piece of shit. It kind of reminds me of like when I modeled in the 80s. You were a model if you were modeling. You know, you were there on a runway or doing a photo shoot or doing a commercial, and the only time people would really see you is at those places. You were legit. Now you can kind of go online, as you know, and say, hey, I'm a model, or hey, I'm this, or hey, I'm a filmmaker because I made a short film, which that's wonderful. I'm not dissing that, but, or I'm doing this. Look at me, I'm here. Look at me, I'm doing that. You kind of can construct it to kind of look like you're more than you are, I guess you could say. And again, I'm not there to rip on anybody. But back to having that drive, whatever motivates you to kick it in the ass, use in any way you can. Because I think a lot of society is making us feel like if you don't think this way, or you don't believe in this, and if you're not open-minded to this, then, there's something wrong with you. And you know what? Forget all that shit. You got something you want to do, kick it in the ass, get it done. And again, you may have to go back and say, what's really going to kind of kick this in the ass for me? Like maybe you almost need to, I'm not saying create something in your head, but sometimes like a lot of athletes do that. They stir up shit in their head saying, this last time I played this person, I think they did this to me, or I heard they said this about me, to motivate themselves. And again, it's I'm not telling you to do that necessarily, but what you need to do is really find what motivates you. And one of the things really that was motivating me was anger. And a lot of people I know that are like, well, anger does nothing but destroy you. I can't say that necessarily, because anger got me to a place that maybe I would have never gotten to. If I was kind of soft, or I never wanted revenge, and I never wanted to, fulfill what I wanted to fulfill, it was almost like I was training for something without a date and a time, if that kind of makes sense. A lot of times, like you have boxers or MMA fighters or whatever, they're going to say, hey, we're going to fight on this day. So you train for that. I was mentally training to meet up with somebody eventually, once I found where they were truly at. And then I wanted to destroy them. And again, once I got there, I realized I'm actually well beyond destroying them. They're like, I felt like I was a child then, and now I'm a man. I almost felt like, oh my God, I was a lightweight fighter, now I'm a heavyweight fighter. A heavyweight fighter, I can't go fight a lightweight. That would be ridiculous. And again, I'm not saying he could have knocked me out or whatever. I highly doubt it, but my point being is those were all motivation, things that I used as motivators or motivation to really get me to where I want to be. And you may be in that same situation, and don't let anybody make you feel bad because you want revenge on something, or you want to really kick something in the ass, or you're out to just get things done, and whatever it takes, you just take it on privately and attack. And I did that without letting ever anybody know. My podcast, I'm open-minded now about talking about these things. Not even any of my friends know that. my closest family members, friends, or anybody. That was just something that was burning in me internally. So I thought I'd share that. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, check out my YouTube channel. I've been putting a lot of things up there regarding fitness, and I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I have a program, Mastering Self-Confidence. You can find that on masteringselfconfidence.com. I try to help men find the woman or women of their dreams, even if they've been through a bad breakup or divorce. But it's really about building confidence in yourself. Kind of like what I was talking about today is, I don't talk about revenge by any means, but I do want men to understand that what they're going through a lot of times, a lot of us have gone through. And everybody takes their own road. And everybody goes through something different throughout their life, no matter who you are. And nobody lives the same life. And it's not easy at times. Sometimes you feel beat down. Sometimes you feel like a failure, a loser. Sometimes you feel like nothing's going to ever go your way. And I get it. I think most of the people in the world would get that as well. But I definitely want to help men truly find, their inner strength, I guess you could say, not to sound corny, but make them understand that they are worth, that they should be valued as a human being. And people should respect them, all right? And I want men out there to understand that they need to respect themselves, and it really starts with them. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you're traveling, safe travels.